Okay, I believe we're on the air, ready to go. Call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. We have an addendum, a resignation, and I would like to suggest that on item 6.0, we switch A and B around. That way Kyle can get away from here a little quicker if he would like. So with that in mind, I would accept the motion to adopt the agenda.
Move to approve with the changes.
Motion by Joanne.
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Item 3.0, approve the minutes for the December 16th meeting. Had those in your packet. Any changes or discussion on that? If not, I would accept the motion to approve.
I so move.
Motion by Olivia to approve the minutes as presented.
Aye, second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. 4.0 is consideration of bills and warrants.
Did you get information, Lori, regarding what these backtracks were?
I did,
On
when we,
page 10?
I have the same question.
yes, I had a variety of questions this afternoon, just real quick. So when we went back and looked, it appeared that some of those items were from the 2018-2019 school year, and in the change of management with Jocksmith, things had not been billed. So a portion of that was for last year, and then some of that was for this year as well. So three of those items, those three of the big items were bills from 18-19 that had already been previously approved, but had not been paid because they hadn't been sent. So there was that.
But what are they?
Well, and I'll have to check with the middle school to see. So I would assume they're student backpacks, like what we had talked about for when students go on athletic or other activity trips. They have backpacks. I'm assuming that's part of what those are, but I don't know.
Okay.
Any other questions?
There was another question. They had a question on page 2 of the warrants, which is page 8 of the packet. There was an AFCO LLC for an amount there, and it was a recable reset. We weren't sure what that was. When we went back through and looked, the middle school volleyball net that comes down out of the ceiling, portion of that broke and had to be recabled by the company so that it could be lifted back up. So that's what that was.
Okay, that makes sense.
Any other questions? If not, accept the motion to approve payment of bills and warrants.
So moved.
Motion by David,
I second.
second by Olivia. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 6.0, special reports, and again, we'll start with Kyle Spilbush, CPA audit report. And you all have an audit in front of you.
So like I said, my name's Kyle Spilbush. I'm with Jared Gilmore Phillips here to deliver your audit. I'm just gonna walk you through it and kind of point out some things that I think, might be important to you, things you should know about. I have it right here. At the front of your audit, there's a packet of letters. We're gonna skip past that and come back to that. So we'll actually start with page 1 in the audit. And the first 3 pages are the auditor's report. This is the only thing in this report that's technically ours. Everything else in here is your information provided by management that we just compile in the format required by KMEG. So this first paragraph is just stating that we reported on the fund summary statement of regulatory basis receipts, expenditures, and unencumbered cash balances of 503 for the fiscal year ended 6/30/2019. That next paragraph kind of touches on that management's responsibility that I talked about. That's just basically stating that it's management's responsibility to provide those numbers for us to audit, all the information for us to audit, and things of that nature. The next 3 paragraphs get into the auditor's responsibility. This just kind of touches on that we audit according to government auditing standards, and that we audit using the KMAG, the Kansas Municipal Accounting and Auditing Guide. This is a different basis of accounting than maybe GAAP financials that you might be familiar with. mainly because we're looking at cash receipts and disbursements. Maybe the difference between a cash basis and KMAG is that we do look at accounts payable to try to get those things that occurred in the right fiscal year in that right time period. So things that we might have received billed in, July or August that were attributed back to June or May. So those next two sections, basis for adverse opinion on U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Principles and the adverse opinion on U.S. Generally Accepted Accounting Principles, touches on what I was mentioning. Due to us using KMAG, if we were to audit using GAAP, the numbers in these financial statements would be a lot different due to receivables and payable, additional payables and things of that nature. So we just have to disclose that we have to issue an adverse opinion because we think that there'd be a material difference between the two financial statements. That next paragraph is probably the most important in here. That's just stating that there was an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis accounting. That's the best opinion that the district can have. So we didn't have any issues or material misstatements for the year. That next section gets into our supplementary information. There are certain schedules that we're required to include in the audit for KMAG purposes. Those are towards the end of our audit, and we'll kind of touch on those as we go. That's just disclosing what they are and that we apply the same auditing procedures on that supplementary information. Finally, that last paragraph talks about other reporting required by government auditing standards. Since we receive a lot of federal grants and money, we're required to do what they call a single audit. And along with that, we have to do a yellow book audit where we look at kind of internal controls as they relate to our financial reporting. So that paragraph just kind of discloses that. The next 2 pages are kind of the meat and potatoes of your audit. It's a big summary of kind of all the activity that happened in all the funds during the year. So if we start on the left, we've got the beginning unencumbered cash balance, also called your carryover balance, or the cash that we brought over from last fiscal year. That next paragraph gets into prior canceled encumbrances. We do not have any during the year. Those next 2 touch on our receipts and expenditures for the year. And finally, that next column, the ending unencumbered cash balance, is probably the most important on this statement because as part of KMAG, there's a 10-page checklist that we're required to kind of audit and make sure that the district is adhering to. One of those is that each fund ends in a positive cash balance at year end. However, you will see on page 4, there are 2 funds that did have a negative balance. This is due to them being grant funds, so we may have already spent that grant money and we had to send in a request for that reimbursement. So we're just waiting for that money to come into the next fiscal year. That is allowed in KMAG, so that's not an issue. That next section gets into our accounts payable that I mentioned. As you can see, we have almost $1.4 million worth of accounts payable. These were bills that we obviously paid the next fiscal year that were attributable to the year before. And finally, we get into our ending cash balance. As you can see down there on the bottom of page 5, this is our actual cash in bank number as we tie it down below to our checking account and our activity checking accounts. There is a subtraction down there at that bottom on page 5. The less agency funds. These are going to be funds that the school district holds in their accounts, but it doesn't necessarily belong to the district. We're just kind of holding them for, our student organizations or sales tax, things of that nature. I do want to point out that the cash did decrease by a little over $1 million. A lot of this was due to the transportation. We purchased quite a bit of buses during the year, as well as some vans as well, and doing some various renovations on various schools. The next page, page 6, gets into our footnotes. These are going to be all the required disclosures for our KMAG audit. This first footnote that lasts a little over 3 pages, this is a cookie cutter footnote that you're going to see in every school district audit. It just kind of touches on what KMAG is, kind of describes it, goes into a little more detail. I'm not going to go line by line through this with you. I will point out that on page 8, we talked the 3rd paragraph on the bottom, we talk about budget amendments. In the last sentence, we talked about we did not have any budget amendments. If there were any, that's where you would see it. And we adjusted the general fund and supplemental general fund for the legal maximum budget. On that next page, footnote number 2, stewardship, compliance, and accountability. This touches on those KMAG checklist items that I was talking about. If we would have had any issues with any of those items in that checklist, this is where you would have seen, as you can see, we talk about those two funds where we had a negative cash balance, and we reference the statute where that's allowable for the KMAG. So we did not have any issues with the KMAG audit for the district. Footnote number 3 gets into our deposits and investments. Since we do handle a lot of state and federal money, we're kind of limited on what we can do with it, such as we can't invest in the stock market, risky practices, things like that. We're limited to CDs or the Kansas Municipal Investment Pool. So that this first 4 paragraphs kind of touch on that, as well as since we are a government entity, we're required to be federally secured at year end. FDIC covers a certain portion of our amounts in the bank, and then the rest we have to either have a sweep account or securities pledge, things like that. So that very bottom paragraph actually is where we get into information pertaining to the district. As you can see at year end, our carrying amount of deposits was $5.9 million, and that would tie back to that schedule we just looked, or that statement we just looked at. And you can see the bank balance was actually $5.9 million. This difference was mainly due to outstanding checks at year end that just hadn't cleared the bank yet. And then finally, down below, we mentioned that FDIC coverage. As you can see, we had almost $400,000 covered by FDIC, and the remaining $5.5 million worth of cash in the bank was collateralized with the securities pledge. So we were in compliance with that. The next footnote, footnote number 4, is referencing our in-substance receipt in transit, which is the amount that the state owes us that we receive in July, but it's attributable back to June 30. So we just have to reference that amount at $632,000 is what was still outstanding at year end. Once again, this would be another item that would be an outstanding deposit, kind of show the difference between our bank balance and our carrying amounts. Footnote number 5 gets into our capital lease obligation. We acquired a capital lease from an energy management system, so we're just required to disclose some general information about that in that paragraph, as well as a future schedule of payments there, and then we subtract out the imputed interest for that capital lease to get kind of down to the principal balance, and we subtract out the current maturity just to show the long-term amount that the district still owes. And we'll go back and we'll have another schedule on that next page. It kind of summarizes that in more of a table format. Footnote number 6 deals with operating leases. These are going to be things that we rent, such as equipment, copiers. We don't necessarily own, but we're just renting the use of them. We're required to disclose how much the district spent on that during the year. As you can see, it was almost $27,000, as well as we're required to disclose any future commitments to those same things. So these are going to be our copiers that we lease for 3 or 4 years down the line. As I mentioned, footnote number 7 is our long-term debt schedule. This is going to be just summarizing all the debt that we owe as a district. As you can see, we had about $7.2 million worth of debt at the beginning of the year. We paid a little under $2 million for the year and ended at $5.3 million. We did pay off the boiler for the middle school. So next year you won't see that on this schedule. And down below just kind of is a synopsis of our future payments. Once again, this is good for budget purposes to look at so we can know exactly what we're going to owe in the future, what we need to budget for those payments. On the next page, we get into footnote number 8. This is probably one of the scariest footnotes in here, the other long-term obligations and operations, or maybe we like to call it our capers footnote. We're basically talking about capers. That first page is just kind of general information regarding what the state has done as far as commitments to fund capers for their underfunded part and things like that. I'm not going to walk through it all, but I encourage you to read it so you kind of have an idea of what's going on at the state. On that next page, page 13 at the top, is going to be kind of the probably the scariest part of this footnote. It's talking about our obligation as a district if the state were to quit funding capers. As you can see, it's $9.3 million. That number jumps out the page at you. It's huge. However, we don't foresee that happening, but we're just required to disclose that because that's always a possibility, but very highly unlikely. Once again, those next 2 paragraphs down below, just kind of touching on more general information about capers. Then that compensated absences part, we just touch on the school's policy on, teachers getting sick or vacation or discretionary days that they've earned, but they haven't necessarily been paid for. On that next page, on page 14, under that list, in that first paragraph, we actually disclose a estimated liability that the school would owe for the days that these teachers have earned and carried over into the next year. And that's the liability that we owe. It's not shown on the face of the financial statements because, once again, it's KMAG, so it's just an estimation of the liability. And then those last two paragraphs talk about COBRA and our benefits to retirees. Footnote number 9 deals with risk management. Like all or most of all school districts in the state, the district uses insurance to mitigate their risk. This is going to be a cookie cutter footnote that you're going to see. Once again, footnote number 10 is going to be very similar. It's just talking about contingent liabilities with grants. Maybe they disallow the cost in the future, and so there's liability that we could potentially owe some money back to those grantors if they decided that what we spent our money on wasn't for the grant. Footnote number 11 gets into our interfund transfers. This just touches on all the transfers between the funds that we had during the year, and then we disclose the statutory authority. All our transfers had authority, so there was nothing wrong with them. And footnote number 12 talks about our subsequent events. If there was anything that would have happened after year end that we felt like would have been just needed to be disclosed in the audit, this is where you would have seen it. As you can see, we didn't have anything to disclose at that part. On the next page, we get into our supplementary information. Page 16 is our budget schedule. This is another one of those things for KMAG. We have to be in compliance with this. We've got the certified budget line, as well as our adjustments for the legal max and qualifying budget credits, things such as reimbursed expenses, bond proceeds, another example of a budget credit that you could have. So then we've got a total budget as well as our total expenditures for each fund. And then over in the far right column, this is the one time where a negative number is actually a good thing. As you can see, that general fund, it was over by 1 cent. The state allows for a dollar variance, so there's no need to disclose that you weren't in compliance or anything like that. So they have a little bit of leeway there with that budget. And then all the other budgets down below are negative, so that's really good. Page 17. Page 43, get into all our fund statements. I'm not going to go line by line, fund by fund with you through them, but I encourage you to look through them and kind of see what happened for the year. We've got a comparison total in the far left column from activity from the prior year, and we've got our actual column, and then a budget column, and in the far right we've got our variance. So you can kind of see, we budgeted this for this amount, this is what we spent. You can kind of see if we were over, under, and it just gives you good reference for future to kind of compare it to see where you were at and how your budget turned out. I encourage you to look through it all, but I'm not going to go line by line, like I said. So then we turn back to page 44. This gets into another schedule 3 of our agency funds. These are going to be, like I said, those funds that the district might hold, but they don't necessarily belong to the district. A lot of these are going to be our student organizations. As you can see, that $141,000 number, that ties directly to that statement 1 number that was subtracted out from our cash balances. On the next 2 pages, we get into our district activity funds. So these, once again, are another type of agency fund, or not activity funds, that we actually control the money that is ours. As you can see, these also in total actually reflect back on that statement 1 for our gate receipts as well as our special projects. On the next page, page 47, we get into the single audit portion of your audit. Since we received federal funds of more than $750,000, we're required to look at your various grants and determine which ones are major programs for the year. So as you can see, we have one major program, which was Title I. Since you didn't have any over $750,000, that is our what they call Type A threshold. If you have a Type A program, we're generally going to look at that first, but we can actually call it a low-risk program if things haven't changed and it's been audited recently, and some various other things that you have to meet. So we chose Title I to audit as our major program. You're also required to get a certain percentage of coverage on the total dollar amount, and we more than met that. Page 48 gets into our reports in reference to the single audit. This first one is that yellow book report that I mentioned, where we're mainly looking at internal control. The first paragraph is just an introductory stating, the standards we followed, what we were looking for. Those next three are kind of referencing, that we're looking at internal control over financial reporting and things that we believe could have a significant impact on the financial statements. That very last paragraph, if we would have had any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to disclose, that is where you would have seen that. However, we did not have any issues with any of the internal controls, so that was good. And that last paragraph just kind of touches on our compliance with the yellow book, and the last one on page 49 just kind of describes the purpose of the report. Those two are going to be cookie cutter in every single report. On the next page, we get into our single audit report. Once again, that first paragraph is going to touch on that, the purpose of this report is to report on the compliance of our major programs. That second one states that it's management's responsibility to adhere to those grant rules and to spend the money as they're supposed to, as well as follow the different provisions of the grants. Those next two talk about auditor's responsibility. We're required to audit according to the uniform guidance. It gives certain guidelines, things we're supposed to look for each individual grant. That next paragraph at the very bottom of page 50 is going to be the most important one. That's going to be our opinion on each major federal program. As you can see, we had an unmodified opinion, meaning that we didn't find anything during our testing that we thought needed to be questionable or that could hurt the opinion. So we gave it the unmodified opinion, which was the best there to receive. Those next three paragraphs, once again, kind of touch over internal control, but this time we're talking about internal control over compliance. So these would be things like reviewing the purchases to make sure that they were allowable for that grant, things of that nature, and a signature showing that they have been reviewed. If we would have had any issues with that, you would have seen us disclose it in this part. As you can see in paragraph 3, we once again mentioned that we did not find any, but material weaknesses may exist that have not been identified. That's always a potential out there that, just because we didn't find it doesn't mean it couldn't still be there. And finally, on that last paragraph, it just kind of talks about the purpose of the report as far as the single audit goes. Page 52 is actually more of a summary of that whole report that I just read to you. It's just kind of a quick glance of everything that happened. Once again, we talked about the internal control over financial reporting, and as you can see, we didn't have any issues, as well as non-compliance. We didn't have any issues with that or the federal awards. And then we talk about if there were any audit findings, and we did not have any. And then we talk about what our major program was, once again, just Title I. And then down at the bottom, we talk about if you are a low-risk auditee. We have to answer no, just because on the checklist, there's a line that you have to adhere to a accounting standard or accounting practice such as GAAP or a required statutory regulatory basis of accounting. KMAG is not required for school districts. What we choose to is that's an easier way to report, and it's more useful to us as a board. And then on the next page, if we would have had any issues, this is where we would have shown that. Now I'm going to go back and touch on those letters. The first one is what they call a presentation letter. This is a kind of a cookie cutter letter that's mainly dealing with if we would have had any issues with management during the audit, we would have come to the board orally and talked about it, and then they would have been disclosed in this letter.
They're in the original ones. I see some people looking for them. The original ones that were passed out to them, not any other ones. So.
As you know, we didn't come orally with any issues to the board, so therefore there's really nothing to report in here. But I encourage you to read through it to kind of see the types of things that we may be looking for during our audit, such as changes in accounting policies, difficulty with management, misstatements, things like that. The we would have had any misstatements, they would have been stapled in between the two letters. However, we do not have any misstatements that we needed to make adjustments for, so that was really good. Finally, we get into the management representation letter. This is what we like to call the reminder letter. It's just kind of the things that we ask management during our audit, the things that we look at. It's a good idea for management to read through this and kind of see what we're looking at, and then, say, oh, we didn't talk about this. Well, that's a good reason for us to talk about it and kind of see what concerns you might have. So I encourage you to read through it and kind of see the different types of things that we may look at as we audit. That is all I have. Do I have any questions?
Any question for Kyle? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for Mr. Reed and the soccer team proposal.
Would you prefer that I stand up there or sit? I noticed that he stood, so. Yeah, these, if you wouldn't mind taking one and passing them around over here. I don't know if it's good or bad to follow a 50-page audit.
Yours is shorter.
It's good.
Is this new, Caleb, before we had?
Yeah, just briefly updated. I've fixed a couple of minor English errors in there and tried to polish. Well, first, I just want to start by saying thank you for allowing us to come before you with this. And maybe just take a brief second to tell you kind of how I got to be right here, sitting talking to you. It started with two kids approaching me in the classroom. One of them was from Brazil and the other one was from Vietnam, and they were incredibly homesick. And I, just in conversation in class, said, well, what really reminds you of home? And they both mentioned soccer. And so I went out to Walmart and spent $5 and got a really cheap soccer ball that they almost immediately popped. But playing around for just a little bit, they got to relax. And then the next week they came back and said, could we start a soccer club? And I said, sure. I mean, you've got to get the people for it. So one small conversation snowballed into a much larger thing. And now we've got a soccer club that's been consistent for 2 years now. So again, it was a group of kids that came and said, what if we took the next step? And I honestly didn't know what the next step was. I knew nothing about starting a program or any of that. So I reached out to surrounding schools and found a couple of names. Max Bradbury from Independence was supposed to be here tonight just to answer some questions that y'all might have that I don't have answers to. But Max is sick with a really bad respiratory infection, so he decided not to drive. Last summer, the kids that were really into soccer decided to take the next natural step and play competitively in a summer league where they play 6-on-6. And they recognize that they have some talent that warrants, the next step in the natural evolution of this. So I got to making this proposal with kind of the urgency of the kids behind me here. So if you wouldn't mind going through this with me. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to ask and I'll do my best to answer. If I don't have the immediate answer, I can certainly strive to find them. So the following documents prepared with the intention to inform you, the board, about the growing number of diverse PHS athletes interested in joining our surrounding schools in a soccer season. We created the extracurricular soccer club in 2018, and we had nearly 30 active members that first year. Then again, this school year in 1920, membership steady again at 31. It was actually a little bit larger, but we had some kids move away. And in the spring, I mentioned that 6-on-6 league where they really got a taste of true competition and were successful with it there. So they want to see what it is like in real state competition. So that's what I've put together here is the proposal. The seasons are as follows in that next paragraph, where the boys would play in the fall, and then if applicable, if we have enough girls, the girls' soccer would be in the spring. And it would be available for every PHS student that's eligible. And the way that I understand it, and again, I had to learn all of this along the way, is that if there's not enough girls to field a full team, they're able to play with the boys in the fall. So it's similar to wrestling in that nature. And then the next section there, surrounding area competition. I went and I looked at basically the league schools and who they were playing and just added to the list there. So you can see, within reason, we've got most of our current league playing soccer, and then they do have to drive here and there to find the competitions there, but they usually fill up a fairly large schedule. As far as locations and facilities, again, the soccer club's been playing for quite a while behind the grade school, and that in and of itself is a really good practice location. There's a set of permanent goals already there, and then the blue goals that are behind Guthridge are they're mobile, so they can move as they need to for the season when we're not in there. Those fields would need to be chalked and painted for practice purposes, just like a real field. It is smaller back there than a true competition field, but for practice's sake, that's perfectly fine, and we could work with that. As far as the matches, the home matches would be held behind PHS on the practice football field there. Acacia soccer seasons consist of 16 matches, including all preseason tournaments. There's a really strong tournament in Wichita. There's several preseason tournaments up in Kansas City that we would be able to join. That would be both JV and varsity seasons that are offered for both sexes. We would look at, and this is conversations with Rob, who I'd like to officially state for the record, thank you for coming, because I know it's his night off. So we would look at hosting 8 sets of matches. And the way that competitions work is that JV and varsity would play on the same night. So there would be 2 matches a night there for JV and varsity. Matches would be held every night of the week except for Wednesday, like all other PHS activities. Friday is basically off limits because that is a football night as well. So while I was just going off of the Acacia website of Wednesdays only, I would stray away from Fridays completely so that there's no conflict there. I understand that we're a small community and, we want fans in every seat when available. Varsity matches need to be started by 4:30 if there's lights not available, but otherwise games can begin after. And surrounding the track, we do have a good set of lights. As of right now, all of the lights are pointed straight down at the track and nothing hits the field. This would require a little bit of a lift, and I'm being very literal there. A bucket truck would have to go up and reposition some of those lights to get them pointed down onto the playing area. And then games could start as late as we really needed them to. Otherwise, we would potentially move them earlier in the school day there. Facilities. I've gone out there with a measuring wheel, and according to the Acacia field requirements, that area back there fits the exact field requirements, as well as the spectator area, as well as the safety area. With the available lights, matches can be played after PHS football practices, or PHS football practices can be moved on home game days to Marble Park. Again, this would require some flexibility, and I fully understand that. I would be flexible with football, the soccer program would be flexible with football as well. So we would have some juggling to do, but I feel like that could be done. The main large cost would be soccer goals. So I'm moving on to the next bullet point there. Soccer goals would fit between the existing goalposts on the football field right now. And these can range in cost of anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000. They are the largest cost for a new program, and ours are actually being fabricated right now by a company out of Leavenworth called Zephyr Products, and they're going to be donated to us for free. And the way that came about was I took the soccer club up to Kansas City to watch a Sporting KC match, There was probably 30 kids on the bus or so. It wasn't the full club, maybe a little less than. And I invited my friend Brian to come out to the match with us. He lives in Kansas City and works over in Leavenworth at Zephyr. And so we sat and watched the match, and he really didn't even pay attention to soccer. He was more interested in watching our kids and how they'd never really seen the bright lights of the field and kind of been that fish out of water there. And the match was over. I rounded all our little ducks up. We headed out into the chaos that was the parking lot. And probably about 35, 40 minutes into the ride home, I got a phone call from him, and I was like, hey, what's going on? Did we forget something? And he said, no, I just had a really good idea. I want to help the kids. I said, okay, well, what are you thinking? He said, well, we can save scrap metal and we can make you guys some goals. And we had that planned before there was ever an idea of a soccer team. So he wanted to donate, honestly, just to the kids locally that were going to play. So Zephyr has stepped up, and they're giving us a gift, whether we have a soccer team or not, of 2 incredible goals. They're going to be professional style, just like you would see on television, the box, really nice there. They're going to be on wheels, so as they're on the practice football field, we can move them for mowing purposes. We can move them post-season or preseason out of the way for storage. So that's a beautiful gift right there, and I'm incredibly thankful to have a friend like him. So benches for each team. I don't know if we have benches in storage somewhere, but these don't have to be fancy. They can be crusty old metal benches that kids sit on the sidelines in. We're not looking for anything fancy, or I even thought folding chairs. Then again, folding chairs sink down in Kansas mud, so I really don't know there. We could find something to sit on, though, I'm sure of that. And then on the back of the next line item there, the PHS would need to provide the available locker rooms, the restrooms, the hospitality rooms for referees. There's even a concession stand down by the auditorium that we could open up that area of the building there. And then since the football field does have the fence up and the 2 gates there, we have the availability for gate fees to be charged, which would help offset some of the cost. So that's the next big section there, is items and costs required for play. Excuse me. Before I move to that, are there any questions about like who we would be playing, the facilities?
Have you reached out to other schools yet to see if their schedules are available in the foreseeable future?
Well, we've talked about that, and that was kind of the cart before the horse. There are schools that do have slots available in their schedule. I know Pittsburgh is one of them. Chanute has some spots available. But we didn't really, and I say we, I'm speaking for Rob and Eric, we didn't necessarily want to go reaching for this stuff without a program. And as I understand it, they honor contracts first with Keisha, as they should. And then as soon as that contract is up, then they need to select the local teams, the teams in the league. So we might have a season at the beginning that has maybe 8 to 10 matches. And then the next season, when contracts run up, like I know a lot of Pittsburghs are about to, we would be able to pick up those surrounding local schools.
How many boys and girls do you have interested?
Total right now, I have approximately 31. I have
Right, but I didn't know, like, if you knew exactly the number of boys and the number of girls.
Number of boys, I didn't separate it out.
Okay.
I would say we've probably got about 11 girls, and then that would make the 21 boys. Okay. And that's just counting the kids at our school. I haven't talked with middle school kids. I'm not familiar with the 8th graders that would be coming in. Mm-hmm. So there's potential there for that number to grow up.
Have you talked to Gary Chrisman in regard to the upcoming Shawn Hill flag football soccer field that we are proposing to build?
I was not aware of that proposal, so no, I have not talked to Gary.
Just throwing that at you.
Okay, great. I mean, that would only be, I love the practice field. I like the idea of having soccer on campus. That gets people to the campus and kids can go quickly in and out there. But the idea of a beautiful facility is also incredible. So I will talk with Gary about that.
How many of these schools have both boy and girl teams?
I know Independence has both, Chanute has both, Coffeyville has both, Columbus has both, Fort Scott, Pittsburgh, I would have to look further past that list. I'm only guessing the bigger schools around Wichita, like El Dorado, Augusta, Joplin, have both as well. But I honestly can't say for sure which way.
Okay, when I talked to a school official, I believe from Coffeyville, and there's girls that can play on the boys' team, correct?
And again, that fluctuates from year to year. Some years you might have more girls out, that way you have the team. Some years you might not. I understand that.
Is that what you've been doing now, the girls and the boys?
I've compiled every bit of information and trying to compile 2 teams.
Okay.
Right.
But I mean with your 6-on-6.
Oh, the 6-on-6, yeah, the way that the 6-on-6 league works is that you have to have a female on your team, at least one on the field at all times. So they're out there, and I turn around and tell these girls, I know that they can play just as tough as the boys and probably take spots from them. If you look at schools like Chanute, when they first started, they are in their 2nd year now. They didn't have enough girls to field the first team, and they actually had almost half and half out there. The girls were, really putting it to the boys.
Where's the information don't you have to have some medical people on the field, like a trainer or doctor, just like?
Yeah, so like every sport now, you have to have that pre-activity checklist taken care of, and that would be the medical area. Like I can speak for cross country, we have a tent set up with an ice bath and things like that, especially since it's a fall sport and the temperatures when we start are gonna be up there. Yeah, we would need things like that.
Well, I mean, at the football games, there's usually an ambulance on standby.
I haven't seen anything in the Acacia soccer manual that
Okay,
states
just
that.
asking, 'cause I
Sure,
don't know.
yeah. But again, I need to start taking notes here.
But that wouldn't necessarily cost any more money either, right? Or would it?
An ambulance would.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, but we do have a trainer
that's
that,
right.
yeah.
We do have a trainer, yes.
Yeah, we do have the trainer, and we do have the AEDs, the defibrillators, and again, the ice bath, all of that would be out there as well.
What about taking from the other sports that we have now?
That is a major concern, and I could address that by, passing this list around. The kids that want to come out for soccer, they're the kids that are not doing anything in the fall.
Okay.
And I'm speaking in general. There are a couple of boys here that have played football and are interested in soccer as well. But the strong majority of the list that you'll see is they're kids that aren't doing anything. And that was one of the driving forces behind this, was to get the 10% of kids in our school that aren't doing anything into an activity so that we can prop up grades, so that we can, really keep tabs on them and give them just another reason to be involved at the school. I'm going to come out and say I'm one of the biggest cheerleaders for the district, and having kids tell me like they want this, they want this, they want this. I've got kids that are already showing up better to class because they know that they're going to have to be held accountable should we have the program. No different than our athletics now. I also feel like these are the types of kids that we're kind of passing over. We've got some minorities in here that aren't involved in other sports. We're missing a Latino community. We've got some girls that aren't involved as well. So we can cross some really, really big boundaries here. The Kansas CAN program, it's all about that graduation rate. And we're talking about 10% of kids. Some of them are kind of at-risk kids that we can get to cross that line. So in my eyes, it's gonna really not affect other sports, because these aren't football players, they're not volleyball players, they're kids that are looking for something else to do. More oftentimes the boys don't want the full contact of football, but they want the physical activity. Girls, maybe they're just not the volleyball type.
Well, we can say that this year, but in the future, we don't really know though, do we?
I can't speak for the future, sir.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So what you've shown us is that.
And I did visit with the high school football coach
Mhm.
today and he was supportive
Good.
of the program and bringing it out because it was another opportunity for other.
Absolutely,
Kids
and
to be
in my
involved,
mind,
so.
I would love nothing more as a soccer coach to have the football coach say, hey, do we have a place kicker out here on this field? And I'll say, absolutely, you can have them on Fridays, we're not playing.
Can they do that?
Absolutely,
Yes, they can.
they can dual sport. That's a conversation to be had between the parents, the two coaches, and I believe the
Yeah.
athletic director here, so. And I'm, again, all for that, that's involvement and, just more spirit for the competition there.
Excuse me, have you had any conversation with Mr. Castler down south? He tried to start up a program for 506.
I have not spoke with anybody in Altamont, but I do remember when all that happened. In fact, I can pull up articles from the Sun when they talked about all that. And they came up with an overall cost of almost $40,000. And that was to start. The initial startup was $40,000. And I don't know how, after doing this, they had a cost so high. And maybe it was just the lack of facility, and they would have had to have created that. But I am shocked that they came up with that number.
Well, my point was, he was adamant about trying to get soccer for some of the same reasons that you're talking about.
Oh, he was adamant for it, okay. I read an opposing article where they were against it because of the cost.
Maybe I have the wrong person.
Yeah.
Someone, who proposed it?
Yeah, he was for it, yeah.
Oh, he was for it?
Yeah, he was, but I can't.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, there are several people.
But the board voted no, and I know, I think there may be a couple board members that were here previously when other presentations were made, and it got nixed twice that I know of,
Yeah.
for whatever reason.
I'll go back to the 6-on-6 league that we had. I actually had a kid from Altamont play with us because they don't offer anything like that.
Well,
So
yeah, I understand.
again, we're providing opportunities, and I'm not saying we would take kids from their school, but if they came this direction, that'd be wonderful, So I don't know why it didn't pass down there, but again, it's proposed for all the same reasons, to get kids involved.
Oh, I think it's another good choice for kids to have.
Yeah, and I'm, again, as a coach of other sports, I'm all about kids being active, being fit. So that was a brief, any more questions on those? As we move into the cost, I can show you how I did this on definitely a budget less than others. So the following is a list of items needed for a successful program, and these would need to be provided. Attached, I've also included some general costs there. So these would be from the district. I've highlighted a lot of this in red, and then we'll move on to another color a little later. Number one being coaching staff. And I've, again, talked with other coaches, other schools. They basically say it's a 1-to-12 ratio. Right, so one coach for every 12 players to be effective in practice and in matches. So an assistant coach would be needed after that. This would be added to the 503 supplementary salary schedule and would take the appropriate percentage of that base, being 15%, as well as added to the appropriate salary schedule there. So that would be step one, column one for the head coach at $4,500, and an assistant coach at 10% of that would be $3,000, for a total of $7,500 for coaching. As far as referees, 3 referees per match are required by KSHA. Referees regionally are paid approximately $295 for total on the night. We would look to host at least 6 home matches for JV and varsity, and these refs may even come from local rec leagues, because again, Gary Chrisman's got a really strong rec league, which would only feed into this program here. And that would be $1,770 for the season for all refs for 6 matches there. Leaving us to travel fairly often, busing for away matches. We included driver and fuel at $125 a trip. That would be 10 away trips there for $1,250 on the season. The official scorekeeper is the home team, and the timer is the referee, so there's no cost there. And again, gate workers for home matches, that would be 2 workers working either end of the field there. For 2 matches would make $29 a match, that would be $58 a match, and $696 for the season. Maybe some of that cost right there could be offset by the fans that we would draw, because our fans would be ravenous and in the thousands, as soccer fans are. Uniforms and warm-ups, these are the large majority of the initial cost of the program. This is a fairly large one-time purchase here. KSHA requires 2 different uniforms. That would be the home uniform and the away uniform. For us, that would be a blue uniform, the color that I'm wearing now, and then a all-white uniform. The goalies wear different colors than all the rest of the team, so we would have to purchase 2 additional goalie uniforms. And flip to the next page, you have the cost listed at the top there. Going through Jocksnitch, our local Adidas vendor, I've priced unisex uniforms and warm-ups for one team of approximately 20 players at a cost of $2,588. And to offset the cost, the team could do fundraising on their own. I'm a big fan of that. I like going out into the community, especially with a new program like this. That's only going to draw awareness that we've got something new. So they could fundraise for their warm-ups, or perhaps there's the Athletic Booster Club that could help. That's approximately $1,500 there. So again, that we could find ways to offset that, and I'm not afraid of that elbow grease, and I know the kids aren't either. Practice balls. You have to have stuff to kick around, so a 10-pack of quality soccer balls through Jocksnitch is about $120. Game balls, Keisha requires that for every match, you have 5 balls to start because they get kicked everywhere. Sometimes I've actually been witness to kids kicking them hard enough that they pop them, which is really wild and crazy, but it happens. So 5 to start, and that would be about $36 a ball, or $180 there. When we have substitutions come into the game, similar to basketball, they have to check in, and there's a large LED substitution board that is shown to each side. One of those can be purchased on Amazon for $25. A scorebook to keep the Keisha score is $18, and nets for the new goals are approximately $130 each. I tried to convince Brian to throw those in, but he said, I'm giving you this, why don't you spring for it? I said, okay, fair enough. I'm always going to try for it, but for $260. And those tend to last, if they're well kept, a season or 2. So we definitely could get a full season out of them for $260. So what I've done next then is I've totaled all of those costs. That's $3,011 for equipment, $2,466 for referees and gate workers, $1,250 for busing, $7,500 for coaching staff, for a total of $14,227 to start a new program. And after year 1, that cost is going to go down significantly because you won't have uniforms. We won't have that repeat of the necessary equipment. And then we move from there to things that the players would need to provide and items that we already have. Players, they're going to buy their own cleats, their own 2 pair of socks, their own shin guards, their own underlayer. They can provide their own practice clothing. And then as we're in the second year of the soccer club here, we've already accumulated a lot of the necessities of having a quality practice. We've got about 30 practice cones, actually a little bit more. We have 8 corner flags that go in each corner of the field. 4 are required for matches, so we actually have a backup set in case they should break. Penny jerseys, those are the pullovers for substitutes, which Keisha requires substitutes to wear. We already have 2 pair of goalie gloves. We already have 12 practice balls. Actually got a couple more right around Christmas. And so we've got a strong foundation under us already. So the initial cost is what we're really looking for here. Before I move on to the other programs that would benefit, are there any questions about the costs that I've drawn up here?
Have you happened to talk to anyone from Sporting Kansas City?
Sporting KC, no, I have not reached out any more than to say that we have a soccer club. I haven't reached out, looking for any of the monetary.
The reason I ask is Kellen Smith, Pete Hughes' grandson, is in the marketing department. He and my daughter have dated for the last 10 years, and you're going to have to educate some of the public as to soccer. A lot of people don't understand the game.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if they were to do some kind of a exhibition or something to that effect, I don't know.
Yeah, we would have to fall within the Keisha rules. There's times that coaches can work with kids and times that they can't.
I'm speaking in terms, you could have the Harlem Globetrotters come to any basketball game. I'm talking about, these are professionals that.
Oh, to come show us.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be incredible, Lou.
Autograph time.
Yeah, Kellen Smith, you said was his name? Yeah, I'll definitely reach out to him. Perhaps you can give me his email or a phone number if you don't mind. And You're absolutely right in saying that there's not a lot of soccer knowledge around, because what's happened is we've created a youth following, but then it stops at the middle school. And so for a number of years, families have gotten away from it. And then all of a sudden, now at the high school level, we've got kids that are interested again. So I think by, creating this program and getting out in the community, we're going to teach them a lot. It's the number one spectator sport in the world. And we've got families here that are craving that, but we aren't providing the outlet for that. So I feel like we could definitely educate and have a little bit of fun along the way. Again, any other questions about the
I got a
finances?
question on the percentage. 15%, what is head basketball? What percentage?
I'd have to look at the negotiated agreement on that supplemental plan.
It's 15.
I think
All right,
it's
why
15.
would soccer be 15%? I mean, wouldn't it be, aren't there lower percentages? How do we see that? For track and those?
Well, it depends
They're all
on the
15,
head.
aren't they?
On the head.
Like
Yeah,
Trevor?
They're all
Head
15.
Yeah.
They used to be worth it.
Right, there used to be, but it's for several years now. They've all
Head
been.
coach has been 15 and then assistant. And I'm not sure either, I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, see, I don't think they're all the same, yeah.
That's fine. Mr. Droney, I got that information straight from the negotiated agreement.
Right.
Step 1, column 1. And again, it's a new line item.
No, I just asked if all coaches were paid. What I want to know, where'd you get the 15%? I realize that, but were all coaches paid
All
the same?
sports, like golf and,
Right.
Tennis and-
I
think
thought
they
that it was every head coach was
Head coach.
15%.
But I'd have to look.
Again, I don't have it in front of me, but-
So.
Yeah.
That's an item that would have to be in a negotiated agreement anyhow.
Right.
Correct.
right, whatever the yeah.
Would they be playing as a 4A school against, do they, know what I'm saying, Rob? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
4A or,
We would be entered into the regular season schedule as a 4A team, but
We
when we
could-
went to preseason tournaments,
We could
there
pick up
could
other
possibly be
schools.
tougher
Sure.
competition.
right.
And postseason, soccer is 1, 2, 3, 4A, correct?
Like
Yes.
swimming? Kind of like swimming?
Yeah, it's 4, 3, 2.
4, 3, 2, 1A are all one group
They're
for
all in
soccer.
one class,
Right.
all one. yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions about finances there? Well, and the last little bit here is other programs that would benefit. It's not just the kids that are interested in soccer. We have other opportunities here for the cheer squad, again at halftime, because soccer does have a 15-minute halftime. The dust kickers as well, and also, again, the chance for our growing band to perform. I know that they're very interested in marching, so there's a chance for them to be on the field marching. And that could feasibly be earlier in the week, and then they get to turn around and use that exact same routine or that same set of song for the Friday night football game. So it's just another chance that we're offering our kids there. And then the last little item that I thought of was the concession stand or the auditorium. We do have the great big one down in the community room, but this one would be smaller scale, closer to the fans, closer to the field of play. But there we have the chance for clubs, other sports to do some fundraising similar to what we do already with the basketball and that concession stand. I hope that you really take a second to realize that this impacts quite a few kids, not just those that would be out on the field. And I feel like it's a wonderful opportunity. And I just want to say again, thank you. If you have questions, even after this, feel free to email me, call me. I'm always open for discussion. And before I close, is there anything that I missed that you'd like to add?
I would suggest maybe the concession stand, we could use the track shed there where people would not have to leave and walk all the way to high school. That's probably about it. Maybe cost for painting the lines, and then cost of the custodians actually painting the lines. I think that would be an additional cost, but that would be
I
part
knew I
of their
wouldn't
daily,
think of
that'd
everything.
be part of their day anyway, so I don't know if that'd be additional. Yeah. Yeah.
So any of these kids going to say anything?
Would you all like to say anything? Talk all day long, now so they're gonna be quiet. I do really want you to see the face of the kids that are very interested. We have Ethan, Leo, Anna, and Hannah here, and their parents came with them as well. they've been interested in this for quite a while now, and it really took me being backed into a corner to sit down and write this. And I think the more that I did it, the more I realized that I'm passionate about it, they're incredibly passionate about it, and they're ready to have fun as well as work hard, and they understand that. They're not afraid of that.
Any other questions? Anything, any discussion?
Couple of thoughts or questions regarding the referees. Are they available? I mean, qualified
Yes.
referees for this area?
Well, I mean, we're talking referees. How qualified are they?
Yeah, I know, that's the question.
They see half of what you want them to see. There are referees around, yes. And talking with Max Bradbury, the head coach at Independence, he says that there are a limited number of referees, but as soon as we mention that we've got a program and games are available, that word spreads through the reffing community, and they drive for miles to do the same that they do for softball and baseball, same that they do for football. So it's out there. They might just have to come to us, and they'll grumble about it, but Max said that they've shown up everywhere that he's helped set up programs.
Okay.
And there's always a possibility we can get some locals to get registered to officiate.
Absolutely.
Soccer as well.
Absolutely. And I know Gary Chrisman would be very integral in helping that.
And this one, I guess, is for Mr. Barkus. As far as scheduling again, it sounds like the biggest conflict might be the high school or football program with the practice field and the times and the things available. So between the scheduling, the facilities, is it manageable?
I believe it'd be manageable. There's often, when we were doing the track last year, football practice behind Guthrie, so we could actually practice where they practice when they have matches without having to leave campus. Or we could be on our football field if we had to at Marvel. We could drive out there, but we could practice behind Guthrie or south of the football field like we do already.
Okay.
So is this just up for discussion tonight?
We
don't.
We really need, in my opinion, we need to act on this to give them more time to find matches, because most schools, I'm afraid, have got contracts already for the next season. They do that. As a general rule, they will do their contracts in the fall, early fall, maybe even the spring, prior spring. And so it would be, I think it would be incumbent upon us to, if we want to do this program, we go ahead and approve it, and that gives Mr. Barkus and Mr. Reed an opportunity to at least to find a few matches in the 2021 season.
So we can't have another month to think about this?
Well, sure we can. Sure we can.
Now, when you say we would start in the fall of 2020, we're not looking at the spring.
Of this year?
If we had enough girls, we wouldn't want to start spring, we'd want to start fall. Of next?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what I was hoping.
I was thinking we'd start in the fall of 20.
Yeah.
With the girls playing in the spring of 21.
If there were, yeah.
If there's enough, yes.
Right.
Caleb, you made a powerful presentation. I wasn't completely for this, but I didn't have all this information either.
I understand.
And I think Roger was alluding to something to that effect, I don't know. And having talked to Kellen Smith about Sporting KC and talking to some of the kids that I know, and you presented it so that, like David said, you don't want that interference with another sport or two.
Absolutely.
And you have to have the qualified officials and the qualified coaches. And you've got the passion for it, and obviously the kids have a passion for it. So I just think it would be a good thing for our kids. And you're right, it may attract other kids from elsewhere. Not that that's the recruiting tool that we're after.
No, absolutely not.
We're trying to better our own opportunities for kids in the school district, so.
In the past, haven't we had students from Altamont on our swim team and things like that? I mean, I'm not saying leave Altamont, but to participate with us.
So as long as you can communicate with all the coaches and AD and get things squared out so we don't run into those issues, I don't have a problem with this. I did it at first, but I don't now. That's just my 2 cents.
I think anytime we can connect students with anything at school and keep them in school and keep their grades up, it's nothing but a plus as far as I'm concerned.
I totally agree.
And I did think the
Reasonable amount of
expense would be
outlay.
3 times as much. I thought the expense would be a lot more than that.
No, I tried to be very realistic and down to earth. I mean, I think the straightforward, transparent approach to this to be successful was that right there. And again, I don't know how they came up with the cost. I'm referring to Altamont, a cost of $40,000, but perhaps it was for the facility.
I think they
building
would-
facilities.
I think it was the field.
Yeah.
They are having to build the field,
Right.
So
is my
here we are with
recollection.
another beautiful opportunity because we already have that available.
Right.
Then if Sean Hill comes along and gives us another beautiful gift, that just,
Well, he already has given us a beautiful.
And you'll be
gift.
surprised
really?
how much the
For the-
community will give to this program. We have a giving community as well. So,
absolutely.
yeah. People always want to give to the programs that are,
Yeah.
The gift was given to the rec commission to build the flag football and soccer field
Oh, okay.
combined. And we got the, we're ready to go. We just.
I need to play
ran into
catch
some
up.
snags.
My head's been in research
So
papers.
talking to Gary would help. Anyhow.
Any other discussion?
So is that a motion, Lou?
You know, I think this would be a good investment for our kids in our school district, so I would move to go ahead and follow your proposal.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Lou and a second by Joanne to begin the process of committee, beginning a soccer program to begin the 2021 school year. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Reed. And
Thank you very much for your time.
Good luck, you guys
Kids
finding
say
games
thank you
now.
as well. Rob, I'm sorry I made some more work for you.
Yeah.
and thank the students for coming.
Yeah.
Yes,
Go.
thank you for
Thanks for
coming.
Hey,
coming.
Leo.
So we'll come watch you play next fall.
I hope that all of
Look
you
at him, he looks just like.
Absolutely.
and I'm sure that we can probably find a teacher.
Yeah, we've got free tickets.
They call you hooligans, right?
Hecklers, not hooligans.
Thank you,
Thank
David.
you.
Okay, 7.0, report from the superintendent.
All right, okay. January is School Board Member Appreciation Month. And so if someone hasn't told you thank you today, I'm telling you thank you, I appreciate it. I do, it's an unsung job, it's a lot of work. People probably don't realize you do a lot of reading, you do a lot of research, you do a lot of going to meetings and answering questions. And I appreciate that because you do that for Parsons kids. So a couple different things. So I've got blue and gold popcorn from the Kashmir Popcorn Place in Topeka, which is quite tasty. So you'll get your blue and gold popcorn before you go home today. And the end of the month, January 31st, it's our last home ball game of the month. It's the basketball game against LCHS. What we'd like to do is recognize you at halftime of the boys' game. And so if you are in attendance that day, we'll call you down, and so that our people in attendance can see who you are and can show their appreciation as well. So if you'd let Eric know, Mr. Swanson at the high school, if you'll be there so he can mark you off and put you on the list. Okay? So.
I do have a question about that. Who's responsible for the Board of Education website or on our website, school website,
On the school website, the Board of Education.
where it shows the pictures and
Oh,
whatever?
and that probably needs to be updated, I would
Yes, it
suspect.
does.
It probably really does.
So does
we do
the
need-
Parsons app.
The Parsons app needs to be updated? Oh, because what they did was they took everything that was on the website and then moved it over. So, yes,
okay.
so that would need to be.
But I was gonna say, I've been on the board over 2 years and my picture's not on there.
We can correct that.
Strategic.
Right, we planned it like that,
We
Roger.
can correct
It's
that.
because
can get your
things
smiling
are started
face.
and they're never finished.
We can get your smiling face on there. We do need to take a picture.
Picture
So-
next month.
Yeah, so next month, if you'll plan on coming with your smiles and your hair all combed, we'll get a picture.
And we have black background this time
Yeah.
instead of those
Oh, yeah,
camouflage
last time it
curtains.
was kind of stardusty. So we'll get the board's picture next month. All right. So a couple other things. We did have our January 6th professional development, which was that poverty simulation. It was really some good professional development. We're continuing to work through that in our strategic plan and getting those things lined up. We do have the Tri-County Legislative Luncheon, and I need to turn in names for who's going to go with me to Topeka for that. And so Joanne, was that you and Lou? Were you, no? I wasn't sure.
No.
No. Okay, so Joanne and Mike? Those two, okay. Unless anyone else wants to go?
I thought you were going with the foster kids.
Say that again?
I thought you were maybe going to go on more or
The
less
foster
behalf of the
kids.
foster kids.
Let me think about it.
Okay, all right. So we've got parent-teacher conferences coming up at the high school and the middle school on February 10th and the 11th. Then on the 12th, we have early dismissal, and there's professional development that day. And that day, our staff, district-wide, they're going to be working on our KISA. This is our third year in that accreditation process, so they're going to be working on the update for that so that we can have our visit this spring. February 17th, we have President's Day, so school's not in session, the district office is closed that day. And that's a Monday. So that means next month as well, our board meeting, the day we're going to come and get our picture taken, will be on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock, February the 18th.
Any questions? Comments? 8.0, report of Tri-County Special Education Board. There was a lengthier meeting than normal, but we spent about 30 minutes doing the evaluation of the director. Other than that, it was kind of business as usual. We did have several donations this time, about $700 worth of donations to the co-op for various projects. And that was about it. Okay, 9.0, reports. Our high school principal is not here, but Mr. Barkus is.
Okay. These are Mr. Swanson's notes, so if I say aye, I really meant to say he. First, the Distinguished Viking alumni. He's asking for nominations from staff and board members for the Distinguished Viking alum for graduation 2020. He's received several from staff, but he wanted you guys all to have a chance as well. If you would please email him a name and a paragraph or two as why they should be considered. School redesign. Mr. Swanson participated in a webinar today on school redesign. If we are interested in jumping in, then there are some things that need to be done ahead of time. He plans to visit with the staff to gauge their interest, as well as the admin team, because you have to have at least one secondary and one elementary school decide to join. If you're interested, there's another webinar on Friday, January 24th, from 11:30 to 12:30. If you email him, he will send you a link. Applications for the Apollo 2nd come out the first week in February and are due April 3rd. I did go to the football game Sunday, so my voice is a little.
There's a lot of yelling, a lot of cheering.
Conferences, we will have to look at rescheduling the conferences on February 11th because we have a home basketball game that evening. I'm not sure how that happened. That was on the athletic director.
Yeah.
So we have to get that looked at. Home basketball on January 31st. January is board member recognition month. We would like to recognize all board members at the home basketball game against LCHS on Friday, January 31st. We'll have a short recognition for you guys at halftime of the boys game. For those that are present, please email Eric in advance if you plan to attend. We would love to have you all there. I see most of you there anyway, so it'd just be another night for you, but you'd be recognized, so you'd have to step out on the court, or Olivia, you might have to wave from up top.
I'm standing.
Yeah.
You stand and wave.
And athletics, we're in full swing. Our boys now are 10-0. We're getting ready to go to St. Thomas Aquinas this week. We're going to play much bigger schools, so that's exciting. Our swimming, we are co-oping with some other schools, but with our kids and the kids that have joined us, we're placing in swimming events with much bigger schools. We've added a girls' game to our schedule against Cherryville Thursday, starting at 6 o'clock. And we are also hosting our big wrestling tournament this Friday, starting at 3:30. There will be over 12 teams there. We'll start at 3:30. We would like, if you're not at the basketball game traveling, to attend wrestling on Friday.
I have a question, Rob.
Yes.
So on the school redesign, so is the plan to come back to the board on the February 18th meeting with that information so we could either move forward or,
I will have to ask Mr. Swanson.
okay.
Yeah, because.
Well, he's going to survey the staff. So you have to have that information.
Yes, I would assume that would be.
And when you say secondary and elementary, that doesn't include the middle school?
Well, they would be considered a secondary.
Yeah, that would be one
Okay,
secondary.
so,
and one
okay.
But it is a requirement to have two different levels, and the way we have ours divided up by grade level
Okay,
buildings makes it a little trickier. But that would be something that the staff in both buildings would have to agree to, and then it'd have to go before P&EA, and there's a requirement, there's a process to get all of those
because
things done.
Jeff Pegues and Craig Carell are, obviously, they're a good source of information because they already are.
Yes, they are.
And it would help us to, so we don't make they made some mistakes and we don't want to make those same mistakes.
Right.
And I think it's really, really, really important that you do have buy-in from
I
your
agree.
staff.
You're
before you
required-
start.
you're required to
Well,
have buy-in,
Yeah,
or you
because you
can't.
just can't say, we're going to do
Yeah,
this.
I agree.
You-
You're right.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Marcus? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Mr. Gordon's report is attached. I gave it to each of you. He's at the middle school this evening. They've got home basketball. And today was Mr. Cox. It was their adoption day. And so, which was very exciting. So the middle school.
They got the adopted.
They adopted two little boys today.
Yeah.
They did. It was very exciting. Okay, so we've got our elementary
No,
ladies.
Special ladies.
Okay, so Lincoln, I want to say to begin with, Lincoln's numbers have increased. Just to give you kind of a little bit of it, we lost 4 students over break, but we gained 13 when we came back. So we're
Jeepers.
we're at 298 right now. So
That's a classroom.
that, yeah, how exciting. I know. I keep thinking 2 more, 300. But anyway, so that was really a great thing. January 15th, we had 2 first grade classes that went to Good Samaritan to do a poem and to decorate some residents' doors. And it was really neat to see the kids, putting the stuff on the doors and the residents going to look at their doors to see what the kids had put on there. But January 23rd, Thursday, they are going to bring residents over to Lincoln. So we're really excited. They thought that they could get 6 to 8 people on the van. So they're going to bring them over. And then we're going to talk about, if they want to do it twice a month or once a month or 4 times a month or what. But they said that the residents were excited about coming over. Kansas Day, we're going to celebrate on the 29th. And all the grades are going to learn about Kansas, and we're going to do some fun Kansas Day activities. The 100th day, February 6th, the kindergarten is going to do 100 random acts of kindness, and they're going to tally it on the out in the hallway. And first grade is going to do a 100th day quilt, where they get to make little 100 days quilt blocks, and they're going to put it together. So anytime you guys want to come on by and see the exciting things at Lincoln, you're more than welcome to.
We noticed after Christmas break that more of our students came back regulated and ready to just dive right back into the new year. And in past years, students kind of get dysregulated right before a break, and they're dysregulated for a couple of weeks after the break. But we noticed that they came back just ready to dive right in. So that was a good thing. Garfield Site Council had a lunch meeting in December with 9 of its 10 members present. Our focus of student growth and moving more kids to grade level, one of the ways that we are achieving this is by using our existing programs in the best ways possible. Our instructional coaches have helped us increase our accountability and focus on independent reading with our Reading Counts program. By measuring classroom use, and students are being recognized more often, and it's being positively reinforced. As a result of this, we've increased our fluency and our comprehension, and we've recently looked at our Reading Counts data, and it shows that students, the increase is 300% since this time last year. More kids are reading. And we had an awards assembly on January 14th, which included many more students in our celebration of reading success. Our instructional coaches are also helping us prepare for World Read Aloud Day that we would like to invite all of you to. It's February 5th. It will involve all 3 elementary schools. There are guest readers from the high school. Some of you are going to come. The district office, the community, and guest authors who will read and discuss their books in person and also through Zoom. And the guest authors' books have been purchased so that the kids can get their hands on them ahead of time. We are 85 to 90% finished with our MAP testing, and we are anxious to see what our winter results show for student growth. And then lastly, today the second graders went to Greenbush and learned about states of matter and engineered their own slime. There you go.
Any questions? Thank you,
I
ladies.
have a question on Guthridge.
Okay.
Could you explain to the public about this Jennifer Hansen benefit dinner on January 30th? It's been on Facebook, and I have coffee with Chris Hansen.
Okay, so on January 30th, that evening, they've got a chili feed. Is that what they're doing that evening? Chili dog, chili, I think it's, and it is a benefit for Jennifer and her family. Both of her students, both of her boys attend school in Parsons, and she's right now having cancer treatment. And so the staff wanted to reach out and do something to support her family. And so they contacted her and asked if that would be okay. It's the same night as the Guthridge Bingo Night. So folks can come out and, for $5, have a little bit of dinner, which goes to a good cause, and play bingo.
And also, she's our PTO president.
She is the PTO president.
Good.
She's very
I just
active.
want to make sure the public knew about that, and for those reasons. Thank you.
And I was at Guthridge today, and they'll accept donations too if you
Right.
can't, so,
If you can,
right.
on the 30th.
Any other questions or comments?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, ladies. Ready for item 10.0, action on donations to schools.
Okay, that's on page 30. So we had 2 donations to the district office from Jennifer Eisinger, one for Honor Flight valued at $100, another for Coats for Kids at $200, so that's a $300 donation. There to the district office. Garfield, there was a donation for the activity fund from USD 503 of $250. Tank Connection made a donation for their kids' local restricted funds of $500. Interstate Studios, a donation of $268.88 for a total of $1,018.88 at Garfield. At Lincoln Interstate Studios, a donation of $648.91. And the Altamont Baptist Church made a donation for clothing for the closet of $200. Good Samaritan donated hats and gloves for students valued at $200. There was anonymous toys for the daycare at $25. And Advanced America donated Christmas goodie bags valued at $150. So a total of $1,223.91. Gothridge Elementary had a donation from Interstate Studios, $17.30. So that was the total there. The middle school had a $250 donation from Labette Bank for the fishing club. Community National Bank made a $50 donation to the fishing club. There were various donors. Jim Willis, his wife Mary works at the middle school. His memorial fund was for the fishing club. So there was $1,500 that was donated for that. Chris and Ella Lubers donated $30 towards the Viking store supplies. Their parent-teacher organization, that group, donated the cost for the 8th grade field trip to Royals tickets valued at $2,435. There were various donors, additional for the Jim Willis Memorial Fund, donated to the fishing club at $450. So that's a total of $4,715 that was donated to Parsons Middle School in the month of December. At the high school, Jeff Scheibe made a donation to the football program of $190. Jenny Pemberton, in memory of Elmer Craner, for the Honor Flight program, $895. Mike and Linda Castle, $2,000 donation for the Honor Flight program. Wave Wireless, a $200 donation for the Honor Flight program. Ray Products, a $200 donation for the Honor Flight program. Commercial Bank, a $100 donation for the Honor Flight program. Alan Evans, a $75 donation to the Honor Flight program. Stevens Vending Corporation donated $31.92 for the Positive Reinforcement program. And Carol Hanvey donated $1,000 to the Robotics Education donations for a total of $4,691.92 at the high school. So total district donations for the month of December, $11,967.01.
I move that we accept the donation.
Motion by Olivia to accept the donations,
Second?
second by Joanne. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. Item 10.1 is with action on wellness policy, and we would.
I would recommend you table this policy
Table till
till next month.
at least next month, okay? We need a motion on that.
Motion to table the wellness policy to action and discussion until next month.
Motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by David. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries 7-0. 10.2, this is on the KSB policy. That's page 55 through 57 in your handout material. It's on funds,
These are the recommended updates.
investment of funds.
Make a motion to approve that policy update regarding investment funds.
Motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by David to approve the KSB policy update. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries 7-0. Action 10.3 is on the tobacco-free school grounds policy. It's a KSD recommendation.
Question. It says, disciplinary action as outlined by the school district. I have no idea what they are.
So, well, the current policies that are in place in regard to having tobacco products, those things would be the same. I mean, they would remain the same. Those vaping, those electronic nicotine delivery systems, those would be considered and are considered tobacco. So the consequences would then be the same.
Is the street considered part of our property? Probably not.
Probably not, I don't know. The parking lot would be, but if they're. Have we had that question before? It's not. Well, yeah, I knew we didn't own the street, but we could, yeah, the parking lot we could police.
You
so.
can't discipline for that.
Because they're off school grounds.
Right.
And I know other districts are fining students. They may find, a vape or something, and so they'll give, they get a $150 fine or something like that, and the school resource officer does that. And we were encouraged, it was my understanding by KSD, not to do that, simply because it kind of blurs the lines, so.
Move to approve the policy.
Motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by David to approve the KSDE recommended policy on tobacco-free school grounds. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. 10.4, this is action on the course subscription handbook that we received last month.
I had questions about weighted grades, but obviously I can't address it to the principal. So I'll talk to him in person.
Have a motion to approve the handbook?
So your questions on the weighted grades, do they
They're-
impact your vote on it, or what? Can we?
Well, I'm going to vote no, because I really would have liked to talk to Eric in regard to weighted grades. A lot of schools are getting away from weighted grades because you don't need them when you have the Kansas Scholars Curriculum and State Scholar Quick Facts, or not Quick Facts, but when you have that guide, you don't really need weighted grades.
Okay.
And some of the classes like French 3 and 4, Spanish 3 and 4, some of the LCC construction classes and robotics, they're not weighted. So it's kind of an arbitrary system. It served its purpose, but I think it's long overdue to look at it again. That's all I'm saying. That'll have to be determined by the administration. I would just like to have that discussion with them.
That's probably going to be a little longer
Yeah,
process.
go ahead and take the vote. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
That's a discussion we need to have going forward.
That's a good point.
Probably need to start
Right.
that sooner rather than later.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Lou mentioned that today, and so I'll
Right.
get with Eric and we'll definitely get that.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the course description handbook as printed.
Motion by Jeff. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Second by Olivia. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Voting no for said reasons.
6.1, or 6 to 1 then, I was here. 10.5 is discussion on possible, we're going to make that day. Whether we want to make up that day we lost back in December. Or do we want to make that a no makeup at this time?
I thought we had this discussion last year, we had 3 days.
Well,
And we were going to put it in there as on the calendar.
Right, we put them in there as up to the board discretion, so then the board would decide each time if they'd like for them to make up that day. So we have 1,000, you're required by the state to have 1,116 hours in school, and so with our 168 calendar days, we have 1,148 hours, so we have plenty of hours. And so it's just up to the board whether or not we make up that day that we missed in December, or.
We didn't make it up last year, did we? Didn't we?
We
talk about
missed,
that?
I think we had 3 days out and we made up 1 or something like that. So,
Something like that.
Say scratch it.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Motion by Roger to not make up the day we missed in December.
Second.
I second.
Second by Olivia. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 10.6, this is a discussion on Lubec Community College tuition reimbursement.
okay, that had come up at the last board meeting, had been mentioned, and so in your view this last week, there was some data that was put together, just a little bit of a, pull it out, see where we've got it here. Talking about that tuition reimbursement. And I learned a couple different things, well, really quite a few things. So if we have students that take classes for CTE that they fall under the Senate Bill 155, so they're already paid for, which is great. So that's,
Excuse me, CTE, explain to the public what that stands
What's
for.
BT?
so that's our career and technical education classes. So that's things like welding, auto mechanics, those kinds of classes. And if we offer those with LCC, like we do welding, a number of those are already paid for by Senate Bill 155, because that was the governor's bill that was passed back in
Tuition
2012.
or the fees or both?
Well, we don't pay tuition. Right now, our students, when they attend LCC, they don't have to pay the tuition, they pay fees.
Okay.
The fees are the same price as tuition. It's real close to this, it's very close to the same cost. But they pay one instead of the other. So anyone that lives in Lebec County and attends. So that's how that works. In the spring of 2019, we had 70 different students that took classes at LCC that did not, and those classes did not fall under the Senate Bill 155, and it was a total credit hours of 361. So there were 361 credit hours in the spring of 2019 that our students took, separate from Senate Bill 151. And so each of those, if you figure it's about $51 a credit hour, the total in fees was $18,411. So that was in the spring of 2019. So this fall, we have 80 students that took classes this last semester at LCC. This doesn't include the Senate Bill 155. And so there were 80 students for a total credit hours of 264. So it was more kids, but fewer hours. And that total cost in fees was $13,464 for the semester that they paid.
For those students.
For those students. Those students paid. And so when you look and kind of average it out, it would probably be about $27,000 a year to pay for the fees if the enrollment stayed the same and then the number of credit hours were somewhere close. Because it's right at $51 a credit hour.
Do any other high schools do this that you know of?
No, I've just done some general visiting, and I did find out that there's an air, and I want to say it's Cherryville.
It is Cherryville.
It is Cherryville. And they do a tuition reimbursement. And so what they do is, this person pays to take the class, and then when they get an A, they get, I want to say it's $100 back. Or when they get a B and they bring their, show their transcript of their grade card, then they would get $50 towards the tuition reimbursement. Similar.
Just in the news. That was just in the news this past week.
Oh, was it?
They were having a little conflict.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So similar to the tuition reimbursement program that you guys do for staff, where, they turn in what classes they're going to take, and then once they've got a satisfactory grade, then there's some reimbursement there.
Satisfactory is C or above, or B and above?
I think it has to be an A. It has to be an A or a B for staff.
For staff.
Has to be an A or a B
Mhm.
to get tuition reimbursement.
And do we pay, we don't pay full, do we?
No, we
Pay
pay.
half.
When we started, it was half. Now it's 100 of the 300 about. It's not,
so
it's not
Because the
half.
credit hours have gotten
Because
so much more
tuition
expensive.
has gone up so much.
So for teachers, you have to have an A or B to get the tuition reimbursement, is that what you said?
Yes, and then it's half.
And then you're suggesting like Cherryville to get the,
That's just,
I mean, that's what you said.
that would be a possibility.
An A or B.
It might be easier to manage that way.
I'd say an A or B.
So in essence, we would be offering free community college classes to USD 503 students.
Well, if they took a 3-hour class, which is typically what they do, a 3-hour class, and they scored an A, and the board decided that for every A, they earned $100, then that would mean that 3-hour class would have cost them out of pocket $51. So,
And if they got a B, why they would get a
like
$50?
$50,
what it
and so,
cost them.
there'd be some, it wouldn't pay for the entire.
If we took after Cherryville,
If
but
we
if
took-
we
right.
just said
You can
an
say-
A or a B,
Mhm.
which would be easier to manage, correct? It's either one way or the other.
So.
Is that feasible to do with all the
Well, the
paperwork?
number she just gave us, we have the smallest graduating senior class ever in history of Portsmouth High School, don't we?
This year?
Yes.
I think so.
So, we really can't judge on this.
On the numbers, right. Because I think now, and the thing is, a lot of times, kids that are juniors will take classes too, not just seniors.
Mhm.
So a lot of
We have
times,
big classes coming up here.
and we do, you're right.
This
And
is
with,
a small class.
and with the small classes, I mean, to pay all of the fees, I think that's very conservative, be $27,000 a year. And like Olivia said, that's with small numbers now, and, those, to me, that's pretty substantial. And so, I think we want for kids and families to have some skin in the game, in that, they feel some ownership in that as well, but then the possibility of having a reimbursement, then, that's up to the
Well,
group
what
as
we
well.
would be doing, I think, was be offering a $100 scholarship to pay, to go to, you'd want them to go towards fees, so not to pocket the cash.
Well, if they paid for the class up front, which is what you have to do.
That's where the struggle is, though. That's where the struggle is.
Well, and they have payment plans, so you can break it up over 3 payments or 4 payments. So if it's a 3-hour class and it costs $150, the college will let you break that up, that $150 payment, into 3 payments during the semester, or 4, just so that it's paid for, by December.
How many students do you know that start classes but then drop? Is there any kind of figure at all from the college?
I don't know. I could sure ask.
I was just curious how many that ever, if we have many that do,
I don't know.
because they can start as a freshman if they have a special program, correct?
Start earlier than that, they got an IEP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start in 8th grade.
Like this says, I just looked it up because Olivia said it was on the news. It says a special thank you to the class of 2018 and the Cherryvale Alumni Association for the tuition reimbursement fund for all current Cherryvale High School students. All current CHS students were reimbursed $50 for an A and $25 for a B from the fall semester from dual credit courses. So that's
Dual
what-
credit.
Dual credit.
Which
what
is,
they
I mean,
said.
that's what our LCC courses would be. But I don't know how many kids start and then don't finish. But I could sure ask Nancy Newby.
But if they're,
At this.
if they're paying,
Right.
I bet we have very few. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know, but I would just think that would be the case.
Well, I guess my logic is if we're doing tuition for teachers, and that includes administrators too, does it not?
Recently, we've had no administrators.
But they are included in that pool, right?
No, it's a,
Well, at one time, they were eligible simply because there weren't teachers taking advantage of that, and so the board allowed administrators to participate in that. The last 2 years, that money has gone very quickly, and it goes to teachers first.
So now it's for teachers, is that what you're saying?
it's
Well,
in the negotiated contract. Lou,
teachers have
And that means
priority.
it's for teachers.
Okay.
Teachers have priority.
So, and the pool is 10,000, right?
It did move up to 10,000 this year.
But when it runs out,
It's out.
it's out. So if you decide to take a class in the spring and you don't get your forms in and there's no money, there's no money.
Right.
And you can only take 6 hours unless you're enrolled in a master's or a further degree, and then it's 9 hours.
Okay.
And I think there's like $3,500 left this year, and it ends in the 1st of June, so, of the 10,000.
So do we put 10,000 in every year?
Yes.
Yes.
But then if it's not used, then it just
Then
goes
it
back
goes back,
into the general
yeah.
fund. And I've got a sheet I sent out last year, I think, that says how much is used every year. I could dig it out and send it to you.
At
How
one
many's
point, it
been
was
used?
kind of lax. And then
Pardon?
at one point, it was kind of lax for a
Yes.
while, and then it picked up again. Yeah.
And I will say, this year, it's mainly new teachers. I mean, our first 5-year teachers that have been in the district, probably less than 5 years.
What do you wish, folks? You want to study it some more?
Olivia, what do you think would help
I'd like to see a little
the people?
form, and let's do some more talk, because I have some questions about dual credit period.
Okay.
It used to be that when you went to the JUCO, you went to the JUCO. You physically went to the JUCO. And now, they don't. And so,
Depends on what
I
class.
have a lot of questions about the way the whole thing is set up right now. So I'd be glad to serve on the committee
Okay.
to kind of study this and see what's best for students. I would like to see more students involved in dual credit. I don't think money should be an issue that a kid's not involved in dual credit.
How many are there some dual credit taught on the campus?
It's the concurrent credit.
We have,
Just terminology. Concurrent, the teachers
Right.
here, and if it's a high school teacher, they get reimbursed
Right.
by the college, correct? I
they
don't
have to
know
have a
how much,
master's degree and be
1,500 bucks or
employed, yeah, they have to have a master's degree and be employed by the college, the community
employed
college
by
as
the
well.
college, so therefore they get paid by the college.
Right.
So that's the concurrent credit on campus here.
And then we have students, we do have
What-
students, not as many as used to be, I think, but we do have some that go to LCC and attend there. Or they go out to the
Yes.
Workforce Training Center for those CTE class, for those career and tech ed classes.
And this is all state mandated concurrent and dual credit.
Okay, good.
I'll be on a committee with you,
Okay.
Olivia.
Okay.
Go ahead, Olivia.
Lou,
I'm sorry?
will you work with us?
Sure.
Okay, can't have any more than
Can't have
that.
any more than that.
Okay.
And then we've got
So we're going to
close.
appoint Lou and Joanne and Olivia to serve on a committee to look at more depth on the community college tuition reimbursement program. And when you can bring it back, let us know. Anything else? Move forward. 10.7 is action on the band and orchestra on out-of-state field trip to Kansas City. We're going to talk about that.
Well, Mrs. Burke and Mr. Stark would like to take the orchestra and the band group to see the Kansas City Symphony on May the 9th, and also include visiting a local string shop and an orchestra shop, and all of those things are located in Kansas City, Missouri, and so according to policy, that requires board approval. since
And the
it would be
cost
out of
is what?
state. There's no cost. It would just be, there's not any, it wouldn't be a cost to the board.
They're not asking for a special bus.
She's not asking for any money or a special bus or anything. It just states in policy that if a group travels out of state, it requires board approval. And so this is in Kansas City, Missouri. And so that she just,
Great opportunity.
it is a great opportunity, so.
So we need a motion?
Move that we approve the trip.
And I'll second.
Motion by Joanne, second by Lou to approve this trip. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 10.8, action on resolution of neighborhood revitalization. This is something we've worked on and
So Jim Zaleski was here and presented it and everyone agreed. And then when he turned everything in, come to find out, he needed it in a different format, things signed in a different way. And so,
But it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It is the same thing.
okay.
Move to approve.
Motion by Jeff,
Second.
second by David. Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. No?
I voted no last time.
Oh, did you?
Okay, 6-1 then, sorry, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that in time.
It's all right, it's no big deal.
10.9, this is organization of the Board of Education. Since we have new regulations, we will elect our officers and also our special ed representative. So at this point in time, and I am assuming from this that this would serve through January of 21. Okay, we'd accept nominations for the president.
I nominate Lou Martino.
Okay, we have Lou. Any other nominations?
I would nominate Mike if you're okay with it, Mike.
And Mike. Any others? Okay.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
I don't want this to turn into what it turned into last time. There were some barbs thrown that I didn't appreciate. So, to keep peace in the family, I'll say, I'll back down.
Why would you do that, Lou?
Well,
You've earned it.
I don't disagree with you, but I didn't appreciate some things that were said about me in regard to lawsuits, in regard to the way I voted. So I'll be fine right here. I'll be fine.
So you want me to withdraw my nomination? I do it with, what's the word that you use? Regret. Strong regret.
I hear
Strong
you.
regret.
There'll be another
I
time.
think you've earned it.
I agree. There'll be another time.
Okay, if you're sure. Sure, would welcome me to be here. Okay, so Lou's name has been withdrawn. Okay. All in favor of Mike then?
Does it need to be seconded?
Oh, second.
Okay. Nominated by David, seconded by Joanne. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'm abstaining, even though it's a no vote.
Okay.
Same way.
I'll abstain as well.
Okay, so it's going to wind up 4-3. Okay. Vice President. We have nominations for Vice President. Lou, would you serve as the Vice President?
Yes, I would.
I nominate Lou.
I second it.
A nomination by David, second by Olivia for Lou to be the Vice President. Any other nominations? If not, all in favor of Lou, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Lou. It's carried 7-0. Second Vice President. Anybody want to volunteer for that?
I nominate David.
I second it.
Okay, we've got a nomination and a second for David. David, do you accept that?
Sure.
Okay. Any other nominations? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Special Ed Representative. I will do it if nobody else wants it. But if anybody else wants it, you're welcome to it.
I nominate.
Nominate you, Mike.
Yeah.
Nomination by Jeff.
If they ever do it, put it on Skype, I'll do it. But
Okay.
until then,
And I will do it on Friday, but
So was that a second, was that a second, Joanne?
Yes, it is.
Second
Yeah,
by
I
Joanne.
second Mike, yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. 10.10 is an executive session. All of you. Need about 45 minutes for executive session.
Bathroom break.
I was going to suggest that we'll make the vote, and then we will take a break for about 5 minutes before we actually begin the executive session. So we have a 45-minute executive session to begin with, the administrators and the board and Ben. Ben wants to talk to us.
So I move we go into executive session to discuss confidential employee information pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception or COMA at 7:55 for a period of 45 minutes, and the board return to open meeting at 8:40 in this room.
We need a second. We've got a second. Motion by Jeff.
Second.
Second by Joanne, to go into executive session for 45 minutes, begin at 7:55, return this meeting at 8:40, begin with the board, the administration, and Ben. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Okay, we're back in open session. Again, we need to extend our executive session. I think probably another 20 minutes might make it happen. Begin with the same folks who are right here, right now, the board and the two administrators. Somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion to enter executive session again for employee information pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under COMA at 8:42 for 20 minutes, returning to this room 9:02.
Okay, you have a motion from Jeff?
Second.
Second from Joanne. As we go into executive session for 20 minutes, begin at 8:02 for the purpose of talking about confidential employee information pursuant to non-elected personnel in COMA with the board and administrators present. Return back here at 9:02. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Okay, we're back in session. We're ready for agenda item 10.11, which is action to extend contracts for district administrators.
Need to turn that on. Are we going to do this as an entire group?
We're okay, correct, Eric? We're waiting for those?
Okay. All right, so I've got Rob Barkus as the high school assistant principal and activities director, Kurt Fries, Guthridge principal, Shelley Gardner, Lincoln principal, Tyler Gordon, middle school assistant principal and activities director, Misty Russell, Garfield principal, Eric Swanson, high school principal. I would recommend that you extend those contracts for the 2020-21 school year.
I so move.
Motion by Roger,
Second it.
second by Olivia. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. 10.12, recommendation for employment.
Okay, we have 3 of those this evening. Christopher Langlis, the middle school evening custodian, effective January the 6th, 2020. Dan Swafford, middle school ISS supervisor, effective January 27th, 2020. And Lenny Thomas, Guthridge custodian, effective December the 24th, 2019. I recommend that you approve those folks for employment.
Also move.
Motion by Olivia,
Second.
second by Joanne to approve those for employment. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Resignations from employment.
Okay, we have 3 of those. First is John Cox, middle school principal, effective the end of the 1920 school year. Amelia Garner, bus monitor, effective January 17th, 2020. And then on the addendum, Adrian Hitchcock, preschool aide, effective January the 9th, 2020. I recommend that you accept those resignations from employment.
Move to approve the resignations.
Motion by Joanne, second by Olivia. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Goes over the board.
We are adjourned.
So on the poverty, did anyone come up with some plans of attack that we can hear yet?
About the poverty.
How are we going to address poverty? It's nice to go to the conferences,
It is.
but what are we going to do?
And so they did that SWOT analysis, and that's part of what the administrators need to look at, and then we need to visit about in buildings. We talked about having the Circles group, which is a group that is separate from a school, come in because they're the ones that address the poverty.
What I'm suggesting is, let us know what some of the plans are next meeting. Just give us a beginning on that.
Okay.
And maybe some on the strategic plan as well. Where we are on that? I know you mentioned it in your report tonight, but you just mentioned it, so.
Okay, you'd like
where
more
are we
specific
on that?
update? Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? 9:05, we're adjourned.
All right, thank you.